the longstanding U.S. government mantra on Hezbollah has gone something like this. Hezbollah is an Iranian proxy terrorist militia that dominates Lebanon, threatens Israel, serves Iranian interests, and it's impossible to dislodge in large part because it's so popular with the Shiite community in Lebanon. And Haneen's research, I think, is so important because it challenges this fundamental assumption about Hezbollah. Now, during the Trump administration, we paid a great deal of attention to Lebanon. A lot was going on. You had the financial collapse taking hold. You had the port explosion. You had Lebanon's precision-guided munitions program really making dramatic progress. We also sanctioned Hezbollah financial institutions like the Jamal Trust Bank. And we were careful to do so, awaiting for Moody's to come out with their credit ratings first that downgraded Lebanon. And the day after, we piled on and did Jamal Trust, but we weren't responsible for the downgrading. So we raised the cost as well for Hezbollah's allies. We designated some of Hezbollah's most corrupt allies, including, as pointed out earlier, Gibran Bassil, the president's son-in-law. The message, I think, in this regard is clear. The U.S. stands not only against corruption, in which Hezbollah is intimately involved, and which is resulting in the decimation of Lebanon's economy, but that these people are going to pay a price. We look for political opportunities. We saw an opportunity to deal Hezbollah a symbolic defeat in the municipal elections. We knew about what happened in 2016 with Beirut Madinati in municipal elections, and we wanted to build on this. And understanding primarily that it would be symbolic, but nonetheless, reaffirming that this organization is not 10 feet tall. We cultivated Shiite businessmen. So during my tenure as assistant secretary of NEA, I traveled to Lebanon twice or three times. On all occasions, I had very public dinners with Shiite businessmen opposed to Hezbollah. We supported civil society, Shiite civil society. So I met with courageous members of the Shiite civil society opposed to Hezbollah's authoritarianism. I met with Shiite journalists, people who wrote for Genovia, a great online site in the South that reports on Hezbollah's corruption and repression. In short, I think we took an approach that refused to see the Lebanese Shiite community as a monolith, and we tried to find opportunities to capitalize on this Shiite discontent. Now, sadly, we didn't have enough time. I think it may not have succeeded in any event, but I think it was the right approach. So the phenomena that Haneen describes so well, I think, is an opportunity for, regardless of whether it's Republicans or Democrats in Washington, that the administration should look to exploit. Now, the alternative to that is a default U.S. policy of basically funding the Lebanese armed forces, underwriting the military in the hope that somehow this will mitigate towards stability in Lebanon. Now, while there's some merit in funding the institution, it's not a panacea and won't be an agent of change in Lebanon. Indeed, the LEF won't prevent state collapse or another Hezbollah war with Israel. The focus of the LEF, absent an approach to Hezbollah, is a recipe for continuation of the status quo, or more likely a further deterioration, ultimately the destabilization of Lebanon. Now, final word on elections, going back to the initial question from Rob. Notwithstanding all the protests in 2019, the widespread discontent in Lebanon, I don't see the elections dramatically changing the situation. First of all, as we know well from what happened after 2005 and 2009, Hezbollah doesn't respect results of elections, right? They believe in both bullets and ballots. When the government tried to do something in 2008, they stormed Beirut and shot at the prime minister's home, and the military did nothing to stop it from happening, as if they could. Another reason why there won't be any impact, and I think the Christian community, as Bashar pointed out, is important to look at what happens here, whether because Gibran Bassil and the Tayyara Watani or the Free Patriotic Movement, whether because they are viewed as corrupt and in cahoots with Hezbollah. Whether they will suffer, who knows where these votes will go. But what I do know is that the opposition is incredibly divided, brimming with narcissistic or individualistic leaders who are more interested in being the head of their individual parties than getting together and overthrowing a corrupt elite. And so they have something like 100 parties running, the normal parties, and then all these other smaller parties. And my guess is they're going to eat their own, and we're not going to see them gain a great deal of seats to shift the balance. Finally, and I think Bashar noted this, in difficult times, like Lebanon is currently in, with something like 75 or 90% of the people now under the poverty line, I think people rely more or turn more to their sectarian roots to protect them from other sects